U.S. John D.Ford was a Clemson-class destroyer in the United States Navy during World War II. She was named for Rear Admiral John Donaldson Ford. John D.Ford was laid down the 11th of November 1919 and launched the 2nd of September 1920 from William Cramp and Amp Sons, sponsored by Miss F. Faith Ford, daughter of Rear Admiral Ford, and commissioned as Ford the 30th of December 1920, Lieutenant Junior Grade Lt. Forbes in temporary command. Service history. After acceptance trials off New England, John D. Ford received Lieutenant Commander C.A. Pownall as commanding officer of the 16th of July 1921. On the 17th of November, while operating along the eastern seaboard, her name was changed to John D. Ford. After training in the Caribbean, she departed Newport, Rhode Island, the 20th of June 1922 for permanent duty with the Asiatic Fleet, sailing via the Mediterranean Sea, the Suez Canal, and the Indian Ocean. She arrived Cavite, Manila Bay, the 21st of August to begin almost 2 decades of service in the Far East. Prior to the outbreak of World War II, Ford operated out of Manila, cruising Asiatic waters from southern China to northern Japan. During April and May 1924, she helped establish temporary air bases on the Japanese Kuril and Hokkaido Islands in support of the Pioneer global flight between the 9th of April and the 28th of September by the U.S. Air Service. Chinese Civil War. On the 6th of June she deployed to Shanghai, China, to protect American lives and interests which were threatened by Chinese civil strife. After renewal of the Chinese Civil War in May 1926, she patrolled the Chinese coast to protect convoys from roving bands of bandits. On the 24th of March 1927 she supported the evacuation of American and foreign nationals who were fleeing from mob violence at Nanking. That event included a naval bombardment of the city. The ascendancy of the reformed nationalist government under Chiang Kai-shek in 1928 reduced the intensity of the civil strife. However, Sino-Japanese relations deteriorated, requiring Ford to remain in China. Following Japanese aggression in northern China during July 1937, she evacuated Americans from piping as Japanese ships prepared to blockade the Chinese coast. Steaming to Manila the 21st of November, she operated between the Philippines and southern China on fleet maneuvers. After war broke out in Europe in September 1939, she increased training off the Philippines and commenced neutrality patrols in the Philippine and South China Seas. World War II. After the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor the 7th of December 1941, John D. Ford readied for action at Cavite as a unit of DD 59. Undamaged by the destructive Japanese air raid on Manila Bay the 10th of December, she sailed southward the same day to patrol the Sulu Sea and Makassar Strait with Task Force 6. She remained in Makassar Strait until the 23rd of December. Then she steamed from Balikpapan, Borneo to Surabaya, Java, arriving the 24th. The Japanese pressed southward through the Philippines and into Indonesia. The Allies could hardly hope to contain the Japanese offensive in the East Indies. With too few ships and practically no air support, they strove to harass the Japanese forces in an attempt to delay their advance, and to prevent the invasion of Australia. Anxious to strike back at the Japanese, Ford departed Surabaya the 11th of January 1942 for Kupang, Timor, where she arrived on the 18th to join a destroyer striking force. 2 days later, the force sailed for Balikpapan to conduct a surprise torpedo attack on Japanese shipping, arriving off Balikpapan during mid-watch the 24th of January. The 4 destroyers launched a raid through the Japanese transports while Japanese destroyers steamed about Makassar Strait in search of reported American submarines. For over an hour the destroyers fired torpedoes and shells at the astonished enemy. Before retiring from the first surface action in the Pacific War, they sank 4 Japanese ships. One of them, the I.J. transport Kyoto Maru, fell victim to John D.Ford's torpedoes and was lost along with 6 crewmen and 272 troops. In the darkness, Ford also fired on the Japanese hospital ship Asahi Maru, causing minor damage. The striking force arrived Surabaya the 25th of January. The Japanese pincer offensive through the Dutch East Indies continued despite Allied harassment. On the 3rd of February the Japanese began air raids on Surabaya, and John D.Ford retired in convoy to Tijilajap on the southern coast of Java. During mid-February the Japanese tightened the control of islands east and west of Java, and on the 18th of February they landed troops on Bali, adjacent to the eastern end of the Java. In response, John D. Ford, Poe, and other American and Dutch ships steamed Badawang Strait in 2 waves to engage an enemy destroyer transport force during the night of 19/20 February in what became known as the Battle of Badawang Strait. A unit of the first wave, Ford conducted a running engagement with 2 Japanese destroyers without results. The outcome from the battle as a whole was a Japanese victory. The landings on Bali were successful and the Dutch destroyer HNLMS Tyne was sunk, while suffering substantial damage to only 1 ship. Returning to Tijilajap the 21st of February for fuel, Ford and Pope immediately sailed to Kiritimati to pick up the last reserve of 17 to 18 torpedoes from Black Hawk. Then they steamed to Surabaya, arriving on the 24th to join the dwindling ABDA striking force, hampered by shortages of fuel, ammunition, and torpedoes and reduced in strength by sinkings, battle damage, and repair needs. The Allies indeed faced a critical situation. Only 4 U.S. destroyers remained operational in the striking force. Late on the 25th, Ford sortied with the striking force from Surabaya in search of a large enemy amphibious force in the Java Sea. Returning to port the following day, the force was joined by 5 British ships. Once more the striking force steamed to intercept the enemy. Following an unsuccessful strike by enemy planes the morning of the 27th, the Allied force steamed for Surabaya. While steaming through the minefield, the ships reversed course and deployed to meet the enemy off the northern coast of Java. The Battle of Java Sea commenced at 16:16 and continued for over 7 hours. The Allied ships, 5 cruisers and 9 destroyers, engaged the enemy force, 4 cruisers and 13 destroyers, in a furious running battle marked by intermittent gun and torpedo duels. Ford emerged from the battle undamaged, but once again the battle as whole was a defeat for the Allies. As in the unsuccessful attempt to prevent the invasion of Java, 5 Allied ships were sunk. Retiring to Surabaya, Ford and 3 other destroyers of DD-228 departed after dark the 28th of February for Australia, steaming undetected through the narrows of Bali Strait during midwatch the 1st of March. The destroyers encountered 3 Japanese destroyers guarding the southern end of the strait. Out of torpedoes and low on ammunition, the destroyers retreated from the Japanese patrol and steamed for Fremantle. Lieutenant Commander J.E. Cooper, who had skippered Ford since before the outbreak of the war, brought her safely to Australia the 4th of March. After 2 months of convoy escort duty along the Australian coast, Ford departed Brisbane the 9th of May for Pearl Harbor. Arriving the 2nd of June, she sailed in convoy 3 days later for San Francisco and arrived the 12th of June. She cleared San Francisco for Pearl Harbor the 23rd of June, and during the next 11 months escorted 9 convoys between San Francisco and Pearl. Returning to the West Coast the 20th of May 1943, she departed San Francisco the 24th of May for convoy and anti-submarine warfare patrols in the Atlantic. Assigned to the 10th Fleet, Ford transited the Panama Canal the 4th of June and joined a Trinidad-bound convoy the 6th. For the next 6 months she ranged the North and South Atlantic from New York and Charleston, South Carolina, to Casablanca, French Morocco, and Recife, Brazil, protecting supply convoys from U-boats. After ASW training late in December, she joined Guadalcanal out of Norfolk, Virginia, the 5th of January 1944 for offensive ASW operations in the Atlantic. The destroyer supported the destruction of German submarine U-544 biplanes from Guadalcanal, who surprised and depth-charged the submarine while refueling west of the Azores the 16th of January. After returning to the East Coast the 16th of February, Ford cleared Norfolk the 14th of March for a convoy run to the Mediterranean. While at Gibraltar the 29th of March, she was damaged in a collision with a British tanker. Following repairs, she returned to Norfolk, arriving the 1st of May. Departing Norfolk the 24th of May for convoy duty to the Canal Zone, Ford continued convoy patrols for almost a year from eastern seaboard ports to Recife, Reykjavik, and Casablanca. For the 24th of May 1945 to the 27th of June, she acted as escort and plane guard for Boxer during the carrier's shakedown in the Caribbean. Then she returned to Norfolk. She sailed the 8th of July for Boston Navy Yard, where she arrived the 9th of July for conversion to miscellaneous auxiliary AG 119. After conversion, she returned to Norfolk the 9th of September and decommissioned the 2nd of November 1945. Subsequently, she was sold for scrap the 5th of October 1947 to Northern Metal Company, Philadelphia. Awards. John D.Ford received 4 battle stars for her World War II service. As of 2010, no other U.S. Navy ship has been named John D. Ford.